seen the last train go by. Is kill or be killed? I wonder who lives. Too long to stay outside. Too long to be alone. Just let it go. Just let it go. Just let it go. Just let it go.
Good morning, everybody. 9 o'clock on Thursday. I'm not as cold as I was yesterday, but I tell you what, it was cold in here yesterday. I got Kim Clarkson here. She's fired up. She's got coffee. She's ready to go. Can you hear anything? You can wear them if you want. She's trying to figure out how to put the headphones on. It's okay. You don't need them. There's nobody listening. I just do it for my own personal, attention. Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't as cold, this morning I didn't have to chip out my car like I did yesterday. Good morning, Barbara. Good morning, Brenda. Brenda Hughes watching. Tomorrow, we will not be here at Pine and Plow. We will be over at KPA. And I fully expect Brenda Hughes to come in there with some kind of large animal to take me on. So that'll be exciting. And then next Tuesday, I'm very excited about this as well. We're going to be over at the Museum of Western Art. We're going to do a full show from the Museum of Western Art, and we're going to make Daryl Beecham, the fine executive director over there. We're going to make him walk around the museum and just show us stuff. So I'm excited about that. Lynette saying it's 25 degrees on her porch this morning. I had to get another chair for Kim. I felt bad because the chairs here are metal, and let me tell you, that's not really very nice on your fanny when it's that cold. It's 39 degrees this morning. The markets are trading up 0.5% across the board. S&P trading at 38.21. The Dow is trading up at 31,203, and the Nasdaq trading at 13,191. In case you cared, in case you have investments. Looking like we're going to have a great rest of the week, though. Going to be breezy here later in the day. Moving towards a high of 63 degrees and moving toward a nice Friday and a nice Saturday, nice weekend looks like. Next rain maybe next week, 50% chance on Tuesday, but we're going to have highs in the 60s. So there you go. Top story of the day, of course, the impeachment yesterday. I'm not really sure. I get the strategy, I guess, but 2 weeks left. Not even a week left. You have a week left to go until it's all over, but they impeached him again. So President Trump will carry that with him for the rest of his life, I guess. This whole thing with the Capitol and everything, it's crazy. Now there's a report out that the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security did no assessments, no threat assessment of this potential assault on the Capitol. But when they had done things for Black Lives Matter and in the wake of George Floyd, they had done threat assessments across multiple cities to see what the level of violence is going to be. And this is what NPR is reporting this morning. So that is something we're going to have to keep a close eye on as well. It was surreal yesterday. If we didn't think we could even get more surreal, the sight of Capitol troops, our troops in the Capitol yesterday, basically bivouacked inside of Congress yesterday. They're saying now that there may be as many as 30,000 troops, most of them armed, there for the inauguration. And there through the weekend because there's expected to be protests on Sunday. So who knows what's going to happen here? I think we're still kind of, it's like one day at a time and just craziness as well. So we're going to see what happens with this moving forward. And, there's just so much anger about this thing. And sometimes, like, I kind of get the point. I get both sides of this. And I hate to be like Chuck Todd from MSNBC where he has both sidisms, but sometimes you have to look at that. It's like I get the anger, I get the frustration, but then I don't get, like, why you need to be violent about it. I don't get that at all. So the impeachment is moving forward. Had a curious conversation yesterday with the Kerrville Independent School District. I got to just transition here for a second back to some local issues. So they had a worker die Monday, fell off the roof at Peterson Middle School. So I asked for a press release from this, and they get a curious response back that says, well, we don't talk to online news outlets. Like, oh, really? Okay. So there will be a flood of public records requests from me. And that's not something I really do. I mean, I told the story earlier this year. I was so frustrated with the VA over the fact they would not tell me how many people had been sickened or died at the VA. I filed my first ever FOIA request. Like, it's not something I always had to do because, basically I got access to things I needed to get to. And I always had reporters that worked for me who did that stuff. Like, okay, that's a good idea. File that request. This was one I had to file myself, and I had to explain why it was. And the fact that I have to do that with our own school district is a little bit annoying. But I don't know why you would say. I don't know what the strategy with that is. We're not gonna talk to online news outlets. Why is it any difference? Honestly, the Kerrville Daily Times has more online readers than they do print readers, as does probably the Hill Country Community Journal. So I don't know what the point of that is. That's just bad PR, bad external communications. But you know what? In this time and era of COVID-19, most people are bad at it. So I could probably offer a course in bad external communications. I finally watched the Kerr County Commissioners Court. Speaking of bad communications, they again did not acknowledge the death of anybody. They prayed for stuff. Judy Eichner, to her credit, on Tuesday, she had the opening prayer and basically, acknowledged the fact that people were suffering because of the virus, and there was an implication there that the community had suffered from that. But over at the Kerr County Commissioners Court, nope, not so much, not so fast. Not gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the transition that our country's going through. But right now, as of today, according to my count, and if you want to look at that too, 85 people in Kerr County have now died. The official toll is 48, depending on which ones you look at. But here's the thing, right? So we'll say 48, right? And sometimes you have Peterson will confirm numbers that they've already confirmed themselves, because it's so slow in the process of DSHS. So I don't really know what the accurate count is. I have a breakdown, and if you go to our site, the lead, or the Kerrville Today on Facebook, I have a link to it out there. But if you look at it, I posted yesterday. I said, let me show you guys real quick what that looks like. I have a breakdown of every single death that I've been able to track since May 31st. And so we have it in a file. And let me take this full screen for you guys so you guys can see this. So every browser has a different take on things. Oh, where did that go? Let me plug this in real quick. But yeah, so they announced deaths on the 9th and the 10th. And those numbers don't match up with what Peterson has. Peterson had 2 deaths on the 11th, and then there was a death on the 9th and the 10th. So I confirmed the deaths on the 11th. But here's where we're at right now. And I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit so you can kind of see where we're at with this thing. So you can see that in those first few days. Oh, come back here, thing, come back there. You can see that. It doesn't want to go do it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can see that we have numerous deaths in this October, November, and then in December it really gets bad. And you'll see right in here in this unknown area, this is all the deaths of Adhd Murphy that came from Kerrville, right? So you can see too that like DSHS will report a death that will not be confirmed by Peterson, and none of them confirm the deaths that the Texas Health and Human Services reports. So right now we're standing at 85 according to where I'm at, but probably the official number that the county and Peterson will recognize is probably right around 50, because those 2 deaths we said were the 9th and the 10th, and the state has not recognized the deaths on the 11th. So we're kind of in this position. So I feel like I'm in good shape there as well, and we're making things happen there with as far as tracking that goes. So 2 deaths again. That was the top story that we had yesterday, that was this continues to be, a huge issue. And again, we're still unknown about what's going on at Brookdale Guadalupe River Plaza. So yesterday, because of the delay in 2 weeks, and no one will confirm anything, no one will talk about anything, there was 9 patients had the virus on the 30th, right? They had 17 employees at one point had it. So they had 9 active cases among employees, 9 among the patients, right? Anytime you get into that number, you're going to start seeing once you get to 10, you'll see at least one death. Because the mortality rate in those nursing homes is around 10 to 15%. So and we don't know because it's 2 weeks delayed and no one will confirm anything. And then the charming thing about this is that the state won't confirm. They'll have a big lag, so we won't really know anything till next week probably about what happened for the whole month of December into the first of the year when it comes to these nursing homes. But right now, I believe we stand right around 38 or 39 deaths in the month of December. And again, to put that into context, what that means for everybody is that if you look at what cancer and heart disease did in 2019, COVID is way, way worse right now than that point. If you could even possibly imagine that scenario, but that's where we're at with this thing, and so it's a tough thing right now we're dealing with, and there is starting to see some evidence too that the economy is starting to suffer from this, and you're seeing sort of a slowdown in some of these things, and unemployment rates were up a little bit. There was another story today that was just stunning that the military, which my son and daughter-in-law, my son's in the Navy, so at the end of last year they had a payroll deferment issue, right? So they didn't collect Social Security taxes for September, October, November, and December. Well, guess what? Congress did not extend that. They did not approve that through 2021. So guess what's going to happen? The military people and all those federal employees have to pay that back, and that's going to be their Christmas bonus, I guess. Paying back taxes they didn't pay. So very interesting as well as we speak. Getting ready to speak here to the great Kim Clarkson. Okay, Kim, pull that microphone as close to you as you possibly can. And you have not been at Pint and Plow, have you? You've only been at the. Did you get the right kind of coffee this morning, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're very good. On us, as we like to say. Kim is here. She broke news yesterday. Well, we kind of talked to her during the first episodes of this, the reboot of this show, and she implied that she was maybe going to run again. So I'm guessing that if you're running again, that's actually good news on multiple fronts. One, it's good news that you're running again, probably for the community. 2, it's good news that you're running again because that means maybe your mom is feeling good. I got you.
Yes.
Yes, I got you. There you go.
Hey, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that. On the first front, I hope that the community embraces that.
Yeah.
I promised myself that by the time the first filing deadline hit, I would have made my decision. There's
Right.
no wavering. So
Right.
I wanted to file as soon as I was able to do so and just reaffirm my commitment to serving the citizens of Kerrville. And mom is doing better. She is slowly recovering from a little setback that she had. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, so mom is feeling good. That's always good to have. My mom calls me up all the time and says, I don't feel good. I'm like, well, Mom, because you're working still. You're 73 years old. Stop it. Stop working. Well, I need to work. Well, then don't complain about you not feeling well. So parents, it's interesting when your parents get a little bit older. You have to kind of think about them and take care of them a little bit. That's the thing that I think is interesting. So, that's when you become – I had another conversation with my dad one time where I said, look, if you're going to go out of town, can you at least kind of tell me that you're going to be gone for a while so if something happens to you, I know what to deal with, so I can go secure things in the house, from other people. So, that's how I am. I'm selfish. Let me ask you this just for a second here. Now that I've gone down that rabbit hole. Good morning, Delane, by the way. Good morning to Sherry. Good morning to Cynthia. Good morning to Susan. And we said good morning to Lynette, who said it was 25 degrees at her house. Are there things in your parents' house that you want?
There are a lot of things in my parents' house.
That you want, or you're just going to go straight to the Hill Country Youth Ranch thrift store?
I wasn't expecting that question.
These are the hard questions we ask on the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to have to give that one some more thought.
Right.
But there are a lot of things. So there will certainly not be all of those things in my home. And I assume my brother will feel the same way.
Now, I will say this, and that's a tricky thing. When parents pass away and things like that, it's the worst case scenario because there's things you want. But see, when it comes to my mom, my brothers and I are pretty uniform. That most of that stuff's going to the landfill, right? It's terrible, I know. But like my stepdad has this clock, right? And it's one of those like wall-mounted grandfather clocks. Right? I don't even know what that's even called. But it does tick tock, tick tock. I hate it. I've hated it for many years. It's gonna be buried with him. And the true story on that one, Kim, is just indulge me for a second. Was that one time in 1992, I was really, really sick. I was living in Southern California at the time, and I had strep throat really bad. And in fact, it was so bad I had to go to the ER and all this other stuff. So I'm laying on this couch, and the clock is kind of above my head, but it had stopped working, and I could barely move. That morning we had not one but two massive earthquakes, a 7.2 and a 6.9. And the 6.9 earthquake was so strong that I thought that was the only time I've ever been scared by an earthquake. And sometimes earthquakes they have different magnitudes, obviously, but sometimes when they hit, they have different behaviors. And so this one was really scary. It shook the heck out of the house that we had. We were about, as the crow flies, about 80 miles from the epicenter. And but here's the thing. Here's the rub of this whole thing. So you get over it. There's no damage. You can't. I'm kind of laying there looking around like, oh, okay. There's no cracks in the ceiling. Nothing came down. I can go back to sleep now. But it shook that clock so hard that it came back to life. Ding, ding, ding. So forever. It's now 29 years later. I still hate that clock to this day. It'll be 29 years. It'll be 29 years exactly to that clock tortured me in June. So I'm remembering that forever. So that's getting buried with my stepdad. He doesn't know that yet, but actually I think we did tell him that. He's like, Tom, guess what? I mean, it was like the crocodile from Hook,
Enough to drive you insane.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what I. But you don't have anything like that though, right? You don't have anything. You're just like, oh, well, Mom, why do you have that? Put her on the spot,
No, I really don't. My mom does still keep some of my things in her attic from my childhood that I assume I'm gonna want.
Right.
But right now, nothing comes to mind. Now, I'm gonna admit that I stayed up late last night, and if it wasn't for you, I would have canceled because my brain is going in a little bit of random directions this morning. So we'll see how the answers.
Now, let me. Are you a millennial or are you a Gen Xer?
I am an Xer.
You're
I'm the end of the Xers.
You're a baby Xer. You're not. You're like, because I'm an Xer, but I would say you're like probably one of those late Xers, early, like almost on the cusp of being a millennial, I bet.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's good. So you can say, so if anybody's elected after you, we'll have millennials at some point on the city council. So because like Roman Garcia, who ran, if he got elected, he's not a millennial.
What is
he's
that?
He's a Gen Z, which is what my kid is. So there you go. Like I don't even know. I guess your boys would be. I don't even know if they're Gen Z. There's something else.
I don't know what they are.
I don't understand any of this stuff as well. All I know is that everything is baby boomers' faults. That's what I say.
Until they're all gone.
Until they're all gone, Because you know what? They were, who was it? I heard Jerry Seinfeld say this, that they were the spoiled generation, the baby boomers. Because, if you really knew, Jerry Seinfeld's like 100 years old. But his parents, were like my grandparents, they were all Depression era kids. Mm-hmm. They grew up differently. Mm-hmm. But their kids, not so much.
Yeah, my grandmother would have like aluminum foil balls.
Yeah,
in her
saving it.
Yeah. In case she needed it for something.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny though. I will say this: as thrifty those people are, I always tell the story about people in retirement. Like my grandmother and her husband, they kind of outkicked their coverage, which means that they thought they'd be dead at 70, and then she's not gonna be 99 next month, and he lived about 85 or 86. And they didn't think they'd live that long, so they kind of ran out a little bit of money. I mean, they ended up being okay, but they never thought they would live that long. And then there's a part of that when that thriftiness of being a Depression era kid, kind of like, I'm out of this, no more. So like when my step grandfather died, First thing my grandmother went out and got herself a brand new big TV. You know, I'm not messing with this anymore. I'm not messing with his TV anymore. I'm getting my own TV.
Good for her.
You know,
Yeah.
my grandfather bought himself my dad's dad bought himself a brand new Mercedes. You know, I mean, so there's at some point they just abandon all of that, and they just say, you know what, I'm going to be materialistic for a little bit here. I'm going to go out in style. I'm going to buy myself a 400 series Mercedes. Okay, enough of the chit chat. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about government.
Okay.
That's when we lose. That's when we lose the audience here.
Yeah.
But
I'll try and throw in some fun stories. And props. I have props.
You have props. Oh, but let me tell you one thing though. I was proud of you on Tuesday. And I don't know if you heard me say this yesterday, but I love the fact that I can cover the meetings from home now and not go to the meetings because I can have dinner and watch you guys. Yeah. Which is great. It's like dinner theater. You know? It's perfect. I can have dinner. I had dessert. I had soda water. I didn't have a cocktail or anything like that, but I mean, it was perfect. And at one point, you know, we're talking about rock crushing and concrete crushing, and you were like, I'm not really sure what this is exactly. I need to know more about this. And you made some interesting points because that was a thick agenda. And you guys kind of powered through it, and then you got to that point, and the next thing I know, there was like an hour on just that, on the building codes and on the rock crushing. But I think that sort of candor is missing at times from politics, don't you? I mean, you were candid about saying, I'm not really sure what this is. I need to know more about it. Tell me about that process, and how did that work for you?
Well, so our agendas come out Friday. We don't get anything before, you know, it's posted and the public gets it as well. So if you can imagine from Friday, in particular this weekend, my weekend was pretty full. I won't go into it, but literally without trying to make excuses, I sat down at 8:00 on Sunday night
and looked at it
and went, wow.
The building codes alone was, you know. Yeah,
and I made the point that, you know, hey, the city does a fantastic job of their due diligence, right? I mean, they have committees, they get the experts involved, they bring it to us and workshop it. There's just something different about when it actually is on paper in front of me,
right,
that I have to put all those pieces back together. And I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to try and be. I'm not going to try and go through that on a technical basis. However, even when I first came in, that was one of the first things, and I've heard other former council members say the same thing, that it's a very tight timeline between the Friday posting and the Tuesday meeting.
Right. And that's a hard one too, because you really want to try to, you know, drill into those things. And you remember that this is not a full-time job. You don't get paid for this. And so, but you have to really do, I mean, this is a big issue, you know, this rock crushing thing. And just for those of you who are watching at home or listening or whatever you're doing, you know, this is an issue. This is an area that's out by the airport. It's going to be kind of back behind Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing. I think they're going to have the same access road. And when I heard about this project originally, they were doing, they were bringing in fill dirt over at HEB, and the sheer amount of dust that penetrated the Territorial Times was pretty staggering. And you know, and so it was for a short period of time, but you're talking about probably 80 trucks a day came in there with fill dirt to make that thing compacted. So I mean, that's going to be every day basically, you know, on that road. And so what does the air quality look like? And you know, I think Mark McDaniel told you during that process, he said, well, we're going to pass the resolution asking for it to be reviewed so we can understand more about it. You know, what do you think is going to happen with that? Do you think you're going to have a chance to kind of sit down with the West Texas aggregate and ask those questions?
I would welcome that. Yeah. And I know the county is having a city hall, and I know this is not in the city limits. It is in our ETJ. Yeah. I guess my perspective.
Okay, what is an ETJ? Let's make sure we get that.
Okay, so extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Very nice.
Right now it's 1 mile radius outside of our city limits, and then once we hit that magic number of 50,000 at the county level, I believe, then it extends to 2 miles.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you know, this is one of those delicate ones too, because like you have a property rights issue. But then you have also the question as well, which has been litigated in many times, is that just because you want to do something on your property doesn't mean that you can impact your neighbors either.
Right.
And this is a pretty serious, I mean, these are pretty serious businesses that we don't know the possible impacts of this, you know. So, And do you, how do you feel about that? Is that something that, I mean, what is Texas like when it comes to this? I know how it is in California because we would just sue people. So, I mean, but you don't really do that here.
Well, so when I was on the chamber board, I was on the board for 8 years, and one of those years I was the governmental affairs committee chair. Mm-hmm. And I wanted for the board to pass a resolution. At that time, Mark Marietta was here. They had already started doing their quarrying. And the idea at that time was that's already started. We couldn't prevent that. But can we introduce, or can we ask our legislators to introduce a bill that says, hey, you're doing this to the land, then there's going to be requirements for reclamation of that land to make it usable in the future. If we're going to allow you to do that and tear up our earth, then we want you to fill up that hole and leave it not as well as it was before. Right. But so that was kind of my first, understanding that we don't have control necessarily over that part. Now with the rock crushing part, it was just, it was brought to my attention just to consider the fact that this is really wet mining right now, that the pollution and the air pollution, maybe at a different level. And the question was asked of me, do you know what that looks like? Do you know what this mining is going to do? My response is that it's important, especially to me in that area. We've got the airport. We've got Killdeer. We've got Fox Tank. They have a paint shop right there. I mean, we want clean industry. Right. But on the other hand, they have already started their operation, and they already have their permissions to do what they're doing. They're asking to expand that. So I don't know what that means. I don't know how that changes.
It's a delicate question for sure. It's a very interesting one too, because the thing with Killdeer is that they make sensitive electronics. And, how are they going to keep that out of there? I'm sure that's something that might be an added expense for them, and it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. The other thing you guys talked about a lot was building codes, and that went. Basically, I didn't realize at the time that you guys were at 2006 standards. And you're going to 2018 standards. You just get caught up, and so the good thing was Drew Paxton said, that hey, a lot of these companies are already on this. A lot of people are already on these codes already who are doing the work because of their trades and their licensures. But here is what we have to get to, and that included, like if you're going to build a 6-foot fence, you're going to have to get a permit. But we're going to try to streamline that process so it makes it easier. There has been criticism of the city that they are inefficient at times when it comes to some of this. What is your take on that?
That was certainly something I heard going into it. So I've been really acutely aware of all of the updates. I think you're probably familiar with Guillermo Garcia. Mm-hmm. Yes. So he is... I would title him the efficiency guru. Right.
He's your lean expert.
Right. So he comes in and cleans up processes. And so they've been working hard on that. I'm actually doing a small remodel on my house. So I check in with my contractor to see, what his thoughts and opinions are. I know that transitions are hard and they went to online. I know that there was, everything that's changed is hard, but all of those changes have been made to streamline the process. Right. So I have faith that the ideas are there to make things as easy as possible. Right. And I also have to hear from citizens. If you're having issues with that, I need to know what they are. I've checked on permits for a couple of people to find out what the issues were. And turns out that they hadn't filed the complete application and they had to go back. So a lot of that is me hearing from people in the industry telling me.
A lot of times I always say this about the DMV, is that a lot of times you'll see lines at the DMV or you see people complain about the DMV. It's like, well, maybe if you would have taken care of this beforehand, you wouldn't have had to go to the DMV. Or if you would have filled out the application correctly, or if you would have paid it on time, you wouldn't have to go to the DMV. That's something that I used to remember all the time. But
or if you're like me, if you hadn't lost it.
If you haven't lost it, right. And it's like, we're here to help, but we can't help you if you've lost the product. So that's something that I think we definitely need to keep in mind as we navigate this time. But I think I always am impressed by Drew Paxton because he always kind of says things like, well, we're going to get there. We're going to get this fixed. We're trying to improve this process. And probably these are sort of systemic issues that have built for years and years and years and stuff. So a lot of times, these issues are he's probably inherited a lot of issues.
Yeah, Drew, I mean, I think he's been there less than 3 years. So for him to have the history, for example, the question was asked, what's the history on this? For him to have that history,
Right.
he doesn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was in 2006. I was still in college. I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Exactly.
Bill, Judy, Gary, you guys have been here for a while. Tell me what's going on. I mean, that's the thing, about this, that I always have to pay attention to that too, because I've been in the position where I've been on a board or I've been served in some capacity, and then you inherit issues that aren't just within your window of your service.
Yeah.
They're inherited from years of some decision was made years before.
Sure,
So
same thing on council.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, you've probably had some surprises, through the years, and looking at some of the things that you're trying to wrestle with this. The big hold that thought for a second. We have to do one bit of business here.
Okay.
By the way, if you are watching this today, I put up the link to the lead. This is our weekly publication. It's an online e-edition version of a print edition, and if you'd like to see that, here it is. This is the whole thing. We got a great story about Justin McDonald on there today. We're talking about Peterson and how the virus has impacted those who are. Is that Bert? Hey, Bert, how are you?
Well, how are you doing?
I got words for you, Bert.
Okay.
All right, Bert, Reverend Bert's here from St. Peter's Episcopal Church. I went there on Christmas, by the way. It was very enjoyable. Beautiful. It's such a beautiful little church. It really is amazing. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching this, the lead is our publication, and if you want to support us, it's 16 pages. We put some Bruce Strachey. And honestly, here's my thing, right? Bruce did these great photos. Let me show you these photos that Bruce did. He did these great photos of these birds, chickadees and sparrows. But then I had to ruin it for him because it was all Bruce's work. But I decided that I had to add these two jerks that are down there by the river. Those two geese. Have you ever seen those geese down there by Chili's?
By Chili's?
Yeah, there's a pair of geese down there.
Yeah.
They're the meanest animals in all of Kerrville. They are so mean.
Don't you know not to approach the?
Well, I know that geese are mean. One of my favorite. I was in Portland one time, and this idiot woman was like with her kid, and they had Canadian geese all over the place, which are mean as hell. And she decided that she was going to try to touch the geese, and it bit the crap out of the kid. And the kid's I'm like, well, lady, if those things are mean. They're not friendly animals. They put geese. Geese are guard dogs, essentially. They're like the Australian shepherds of the bird world. I mean, so anyway, I put these two geese are down there, right? They're like in the mafia. If you park near them, they will immediately come to your car. And
Here? Are you talking about here?
Yeah.
Oh no, I've never been approached by them.
Oh no, yeah, they're mean. And I told you that I understood the story. Okay, so when I first got here, right, I decided to go to dinner at Chili's one time. I was by myself. My wife wasn't here yet. So I had to go to dinner at Chili's. And I saw deer over there between, what is that bank now? Which bank is that there? That's there?
Centennial?
The Centennial
Or
Bank?
no,
Happy State Bank.
State Bank.
So there's that bank that's there, and then there is
Empty lot.
and there's an empty lot, and then there's Chili's. So I saw people who were walking by where there were deer, and I thought, oh, that's kind of nice, going to see the deer and everything. And then I see them running across the grass, right, to Chili's, and I was like, what is that behind them? And it was one of these geese.
No, I have not heard that.
No, yeah, they're mean. They're incredibly mean. But I've seen them before. They'll go up to cars, and the one, his neck is so long that he'll get up there and he'll not quite that. Actually, that noise.
That was good though.
Was that?
Yeah.
That noise is actually worse. Is actually mild compared to what they actually do to you. But that's my favorite picture in this whole thing is these two mean things.
I'm looking at it on my phone. I can't.
It's probably.
Oh, okay. No, I can.
Now you can see it. Now you can see it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're unbelievably.
So I have a suggestion. as you're developing the setup,
Yeah.
I finally figured out, because you were talking about different things,
Yeah.
and so I finally figured out I could view it if I went onto my phone and made sure I had the volume down, so
Yes,
I could,
right.
I
Make
could
it see,
follow you.
follow me what's going on,
But
right?
didn't you used to have a screen kind of turned? So
I do.
okay.
Yes. At some point, I'll actually
Okay.
have a screen you can actually see the live feed on.
No,
Which is-
no charge.
No
for
charge,
for
no
the
charge,
Technical,
right.
Technical, but this is sufficient.
This is
too.
sufficient. Okay, now listen. Here's the ad that we have to run for this. So if you guys want to become a patron of the lead, you need to go to the website that's here. Actually, we have it on the Facebook page as well, and I actually have it in the link as a link to it in the comments as well. It's as cheap as $8 a month, and that gives you full access to the e-edition, to some exclusive content. And probably in February 1st, the e-edition will go back behind this paywall permanently. And then, and if you're interested in advertising, there's a couple of great plans here. And like, what I don't want is a lot of advertising, and I don't want advertising that's just like kind of routine. So you saw the advertising we had in this last edition for Wolfmullers and PAX, and Big Seed. It's got to have some impact. It's got to have a little bit of story to it. So, but for $100 a month, you can get all the access you want. And then you get 4 half-page ads for every edition in the lead. And then for $250 a month, you get the full-page ad. And then you also get to be in the show. So there you go. You could be a sponsor of the show. So it could be like the Buzzy's Barbecue, report. That could be that. The weather brought to you by Buzzy's Barbecue. So that could be something you could look at as well. So we're talking to Kim Clarkson here about the beauty of being on a city council. I think you're incredibly brave for being on the city council, because I think it's incredibly hard work. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I said, I don't like sitting through meetings. I've sat through so many meetings in my career. I started my first public meeting I went to as far as being a reporter was in 1991, and I covered 1992. I covered education. And I sat through every single school board meeting, that year from 1992 to 1993. And then I've covered city council meetings. I've covered this. And so, and the abuse that you get, and sometimes the hours on a meeting, you guys haven't had like an epic 4 a.m. meeting or anything like that yet. But at some point, you probably will. There'll be some issue that might come up, and you might have one of those meetings. I have been to that. I have been to meetings where they have approved a mosque in a city, and people get really upset about it, and you have both sides want to make their point, and you have to let everybody in. So those are the challenges I think is incredibly brave what you guys do, and amazing. So you're a true public servant, and you don't get paid. You get a pat on the back.
I found out I'm getting my $25 a meeting back.
Are you really?
Yeah.
$25 a meeting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not just me, everybody on council.
So basically, that works out to about $1.25 an hour, right?
Maybe
on
a light agenda.
On a light agenda, right? What is it like? Okay, Brenda's on the council now.
Yeah.
I know that you and Delane got along really well.
Right.
But Brenda's on the council
Yes.
now, and she was pretty active. Asked some strong questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought on her first kind of official meeting. What's it been like with her?
Good. So far, so good. So I knew Brenda years ago. We were in a business lunch group together. So really I felt like even though we hadn't been super connected in the last few years, that I knew, and I told her this, I know your heart. I know what you're doing in the community. And I mean, I can really appreciate and like Delane, but I can also appreciate and like Brenda, and that's been the experience so far. And
That's what I said to everybody. I was like, man, that's a hard choice.
yeah,
Boy.
yeah, two great women, both of them, and I have been real pleased personally with the things. I always like to hear the perspectives of the other council members and the questions, because I think that makes me better as well, right? So I hear what they say and I go, oh man, I hadn't considered that, or that's a good question, and I see that in Brenda. So I've been pleased.
By the way, I want to just point this out to you. This is bugging me now. It's not bugging me. I think it's kind of interesting. So if Kim comes up to you and if someone says they're wearing a rock, Kim can tell you, I'm wearing a rock.
This?
Yes.
I love this.
Isn't that?
This is a Christmas present.
That's great.
Do you like it?
I do. It's very nice. It's very striking. But is it heavy?
No.
No.
I mean, I have a strong neck.
Yeah. You have a strong neck.
Got
You have a
strong
strong will. So
Got lots of calluses from council,
you're right. Exactly. Okay. Tell me a little bit about the decision to run again.
Yep.
We talked about this previously. There were some issues
Yeah.
about you weren't sure, but I mean, you were leaning that way. I think previously. And tell me a little bit more about the final decision.
Sure. The issue really was my mom's health. That continues to be an issue, but she fully supports and is proud of me for running, and feels that I can continue to do the job, and support her and be a business person and a mom and all those crazy things, and really, so I was thinking about some of the things you said, right? The length of time of the meetings and a lot of technical things, and sometimes but I would really say this though, Lewis, when you're sitting on the other side of that, it's a little bit different, I think, because we're actually making those decisions.
Right.
So that's what's impactful. So it really is, because I think about things like the housing project that's coming online, or Killdeer, and I think about the generation that's growing up here now and wanting them to be able to decide that they want to live here, whether it's the amenities like the river trail, being able to have a good job, a place to live. And so last time my slogan was building today for tomorrow.
Right.
So I try and look at all those decisions, with the future in mind. And I just, the compelling reason is because I think it's vitally important to our future.
Well, I think, you were talking about before you sent me a note. You said, I'm not sure about messaging. And it's not my job necessarily to tell you messaging, but I think the messaging is that, hey, we have great momentum. We have work still to be done, though.
Yep.
And I think that's what you look at with some of the things that are happening that in the community. Like, I think when I drive by the river, it gives me a good feeling every single time. To know that this is something that people are really beginning to. I mean, there's a group that really cherish it, and people ask me, like, well, what do you like about Kerrville? And I say to them, like, well, have you been here? Have you been to the? And I drove down to San Antonio the other day, and I thought to myself, man, we live in the prettiest part of Texas by far.
Sure.
But by far we live in the prettiest part of Texas. And I've been at times myself where we'll go to like Waco or other places. I'm like, I can't wait to come home because I just want to be in Kerrville. I like it here.
Yeah.
So, that's something I think that's the message is that we've got a lot of momentum, and there is a lot of, I think the challenge, and correct me if I'm wrong, for you is how do we manage that going forward? How do you manage that? Because the danger for Kerrville is you get too big too fast. And I think this is the lesson that I would tell anybody from Texas. It's like, be careful what you wish for. Be careful. Growth is great. Your economy is really great, but it also has the unintended consequences of pressures on your water, pressure on your streets, pressure on your commuters, and and weirdly, Kerrville can be a little trafficky at times already. So,
right. Well, here,
she got a prop.
Joe Herring comes on and he has all his props.
Yeah, right.
And so I was at home this morning and I was like, I need a prop.
Yes,
right?
you do.
So, to that point,
I love it.
A lot of the things that may seem to some as mundane are things like this.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the Ellenberger well that we just drilled this year. And this is actually a little piece of water captured from the Ellenberger, from the geologists from Headwaters that studied that and located the area for us to explore. And it was a great project because they wanted to explore it. They did all this research. We're talking about retired geologists.
That's the best story of the one story that you didn't get to tell last year was the story of those. Was it 4 of them? Three or four?
I think so.
Yeah, that retired geologists who had a suspicion.
So intelligent.
Yeah.
Just beyond. When I was in college, I took geology, and it was the only class I made a D in.
Yeah.
And then I transferred to another school, and that was the one credit they wouldn't accept.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to take that again. I could take any science. I could take any science. But I'm going to take that again and do better. And I sure did. I got a C, and I worked
your butt off it.
Right. Get that C. So when they talk, I'm just kind of in awe of their talent.
That's one thing about COVID-19 that is I was like, I wish I would have paid more attention to biology and stuff like that. But I mean, I worked for an oil and gas company for a little bit, and I always found myself kind of drawn to the geologists because they were the ones that were very interesting, about formations and how they would drill for things. And sometimes people get mad at me like, well, you believe in fracking? I'm like, yeah, because I talk to geologists. They're pretty smart people. So but yeah, I mean, the story of those guys being retired, they had a feeling they had
the desire.
They didn't even have a feeling. They had some evidence to drive them. And that's going to be a huge benefit to the city.
Yes.
Right?
So the idea was that they wanted to
Let me see that
explore
thing real quick. Let me see that.
Yeah.
Make sure it's here.
So I guess they used to do, I guess this is something
There's
that.
the water, everybody. See, can you see that?
It's dirty.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. No.
My fingerprints are all
It's
over.
okay.
So Mark was saying that this was something, and maybe you know this, when an exploratory well would hit in the oil industry, that they would have certain little things such like that.
Yeah.
So this is my little reminder
when it spuds, that's when they have a celebration for it, because that means there's money coming in.
Yeah. Well, for us, that's our future, right?
Right,
So
right.
our future right here. And so we did that. So the things that sometimes seem boring, like, we did this long range water plan, or, but that's the thing about the city. And that's part of what you say in managing growth. We have to know what our capacity is. We have to explore other ways to increase our capacity. We have to, but all of those things, infrastructure has to be in place to make that growth happen. So that's a big part of what we do too. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about our streets, our water, and those are the things that make our city, vital now and in the future. So.
Right. The biggest thing I think is that there is a plan, and you have another prop, because
I do.
And showed me that this is called a transition. We have another part, managing growth. You have this.
This is not actually a prop, but
that is something you wear all the time, right?
I do, but now. You can too.
Oh, a
Lewis.
2050.
So I brought a gift, because some people bring gifts and some people bring props. So I'm bringing a gift and a prop. So
I love it. How important though is the 2050 plan in your opinion?
Okay, so I think without the 2050 plan, I would not be as comfortable being a council member. I'm one of those people that wants parameters, right?
Right.
I want to make decisions based on the same thing every time.
Right.
And so you get citizens saying, okay, this is what we want to do. And then you get a plan, comprehensive plan put together, and we're implementing that plan. That's what we're doing.
You're putting that plan into action.
Yeah.
It's a regular
so we're not
part.
just deciding what do you want to do next, or what about this. It's very strategic, and it guides us. So it's critical, I think.
When we're talking about the makeup of the city council as well. I mean, so Gary up for re-election as well. You're running for re-election. Bill just won. Judy just won. Brenda got on there now too. Again, the dynamic was heavily real estate, obviously, which I argue to people who get mad about it. It's like, well, a lot of the decisions you have to make are real estate focused and land decisions. That is probably one of the biggest jobs you have, as far as the city council goes. But Brenda now brings that sort of small business, and some of those questions from the small business perspective as well. So, it's kind of like, I think the council at this point, or the city staff, has to always be prepared for, whatever question you're going to ask, because you have a financial background, but what was the most satisfying part so far of your first term of being on the council? What was the thing you're most proud of? Putting you on the spot.
Okay, good. No, this is a good question, because now I'm gonna be locked and loaded next time. But
by the way, Brenda says you need to go on a tour of the shelter with her.
I told Brenda to give me a time. So
all right, Brenda, give her a time.
Give me a time, because I told her I wanted to do that with her. That I told her, actually, we have a shelter dog, but we got our dog from Freeman Fritz, and I'm very, very admittedly not familiar with our local shelter, and want Brenda to help me, learn a little bit more about.
Well, let's hope that Brenda can communicate here, because I bet you her dog will eat her phone at some point. The dog's eating everything else, so why not the phone? But okay, so your best moment on the city council.
Very best moment on the city council. So, okay, My kids will ask me, "What's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie?" And I always say I struggle. So there's
Because you have ADHD, like all of us adults. All of us Gen Xers have ADHD. So.
I do. I'm diagnosed.
Yeah.
I'm actually medicated.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. That's a tough question.
Tough question.
It's a
What is your
good
favorite color?
question. Either blue or green.
What was your favorite movie?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Really?
I really don't. What's yours?
See.
See?
I always default to Star Wars, even though it annoys me. But there, because it's easy. Because I don't know. Guys are like, what's your favorite movie? Like, oh, Star Wars is fine.
Yeah. Well,
So.
you and Austin need to get together.
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely. We can watch it together and be upset about certain things. I'm sure we probably share the same ideas. I still saw him, by the way, in Wolfmuller's. I should have just said, hey, what are you doing? What are you looking for? What was he looking for? Did he buy anything?
Yes, Christmas gifts. I believe. Wasn't that before Christmas?
Yes, yes. And I saw your little men running around in there. So they were busy. How is baseball going, by the way?
So Weston has started his practices just this week, and I worked late last night, so Austin had to do practice, and he called at 8 to see if I was home. I'm like, well, why are you calling? Because I was still at work.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? So they got home after 8 last night, so it's serious business.
Yeah.
And Reed's Little League hasn't started up just yet, so we're actually in basketball. So our weekend is going to be about 2 basketball games. Then we'll drive over to practice for Weston on Saturday, and then Reed has a club soccer practice.
Reed
on
is the older
Sunday.
boy.
Reed is the
Older one, right? Weston, by the way, I'll never forget this. I saw him at Reed's baseball game. I went over to take pictures of it. Mainly because I wanted to give George Broody a hard time, but that's how I operate. I'll see people. I'm like, oh, let's go take some pictures of George Broody umping. And but Reed was playing first base. He made a really great play. I got some great photos of it as well. But Weston was like probably one of the coolest kids I've ever seen. Like he was sitting in this this chair. He had his arm back like this. I mean, he was almost like Steve McQueen. Like he was like this, and he was like, yeah, I'm cool. I mean, is that how that kid is?
That's the problem. The kid thinks he's so cool.
What is he, like 6, 7? I mean,
No, he's 10.
He's 10?
Yes.
He's 10, but he was like, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
And like the way he kind of handled himself in front of, how some kids will retreat when there's an adult, asking him questions. He's like, yeah, I can handle you.
Well, he.
Am I wrong on that? I mean, is it?
No, I was so proud of him. I had to watch this on Zoom, but he ran for student council.
Oh, really?
My older son, that's not his thing.
Right.
But he wanted to do that, and he got up there and he had his little speech memorized.
Yeah.
He was on the microphone, and whatever nerves he had, there was no sense of that.
Yeah.
He actually made a joke. People laughed.
Nice.
So yeah, he's
solid.
Yeah.
And he's a little blonde kid too. So he's got he can just kind of get away with it. So it's kind of funny. It's interesting. Okay, now let me throw this at you. Now we're gonna hit ADHD. That's an interesting thing. How do you? I know that I have it because I multitask, and sometimes I fear. Don't you ever feel yourself like, okay, it's really hard to focus down on certain things, like reading that agenda. I mean, do you ever find yourself, I'm gonna read this agenda. Oh, wait a minute, there's this little thing over here I'm distracted by. At what point did you know that was an issue?
My husband let me know that was an issue.
Really? Really?
I was teaching, and I was moving from one classroom to another in the summer, and he was helping me move, and he came in and watched me for a minute, and he saw me go from one place to another place to another place to another place, and it really stressed him out. And he said, stop. What are you doing? Look at what you're doing now. And so we started to kind of pay attention to my habits.
Right.
And from there, it all made sense. I was never a kid that had the hyperactivity part, but I was that daydreamer in school, right?
Yeah.
So I started to put the pieces together, and so medication and, sticky notes and calendars and piece by piece, like you said,
or even
you
like,
just learn little strategies.
Yeah,
right?
or like just having like, my wife told me this the other day. She says, you just need to focus on this thing, because I was working on this, the lead the other night, that Sunday night, and I found myself sometimes I'd have trouble like, getting one thing done. I jumped to pages, and I go down these rabbit holes too, which is a terrible thing to go to. Like you start a rabbit hole, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna look up how many people have gotten sick by the flu, and then you go, oh, let me go down this one real quick here. Next thing you know, you're an hour out of your day, and you're not being productive, and that's the hardest thing in the world.
Yes, and so sounds like you have a wife, and I have a husband that are maybe not. They don't tend that way. I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah,
he can recognize that, and he can redirect me sometimes when I need it.
Right.
I take a lot of notes as I'm going through, and I try and go all the way through, but write notes out to the side and then come back to my notes. Yeah. So I can get through.
I think that's one of the areas where I struggle with is note taking, and like especially as I've gotten older, like I find like my handwriting is terrible, and I'm like, and I don't know why that is, and I find myself like, is there a disconnect somewhere, or so I record everything. Just make sure that I'm and I do that because I make sure that I'm accurate, with stuff too. But boy, I tell you, when I take notes, like my wife will look at my notes. She says, "How do you even read that?" I said, "Well, generally I try to give myself a sort of I'll never quote directly from my notes, but I always try to use it sort of like an opportunity to paraphrase or know like a timeline of where things are at and things and stuff." So it's a real challenge. Yes. It is a real challenge. Yes. It's amazing how many things like you think are like childhood issues, but they carry over to adulthood. Yeah. So
the struggle is real, man.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real. All right. So the re-election campaign is there any movement, by the way, on will the election be in March or May? When's the election going to be?
It's back to its original plan right now. Yeah. We all know that life is unpredictable right now.
Yeah, right.
But right now it is set for May 1st.
May 1st,
which is historically when the election has been the first weekend in May.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, great stuff as always. Good talking to you. Congratulations on running for re-election.
Thank you.
Congratulations on passing the fence ordinance. That was good.
First reading.
I'm sorry. First reading. The lead on that story, by the way, would be that if you want a fence that's over 30 inches tall, you're going to need to have a permit.
In the front yard.
In the front yard. But who in the heck builds a fence that's only 30 inches tall?
And it's a decorative fence.
Okay.
It's
what does it keep out?
Nothing.
Okay.
It's for attractiveness.
Okay.
Primarily.
Right.
No, and it's a front yard issue.
Right.
And so that is something that is new.
Right.
And between now and then we'll have to really dig into because that's a new thing.
So you can't, but say I want to up armor my front yard, my 3-foot fence to keep the armadillos out. I want to dig down. I have to have a permit for that. Any kind of footing I have to have a permit for, right? Even if it's like 3 feet tall.
Now that I don't know about the footing and this.
Right.
That's
now,
a good question.
If you read Harry Potter books, by the way, in the second book, those 3-foot fences are particularly good at keeping out the most common and irritating household or garden pest in the Harry Potter world, which is garden gnomes.
So are you advocating for 36 inches instead of 30? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. 36 inches.
All right.
30 is 2.5 feet. It's just weird. Why?
I will do.
Who builds that?
For you.
I was thinking about the other day. I was like, wait a minute, that's 2.5 foot fall. Why? Who would do that? You're keeping what out? Mice? So what are you containing? A desert tortoise? What is that? Anyway,
it's all about beauty.
It's all about beauty. But even then, though, you would think to yourself, what if you built a 2.5 foot, fence? Let's say it was 36 inches or 30 inches, right? But there was 6 inches of spikes between 24 and 6. That just sounds ugly. So that sounds terrible. So we gotta clamp this down.
All right.
Okay, we've solved all the problems of the world again. Again, by the way, if you want to contribute to the lead, we would love to have you be. I feel like I'm on NPR. I feel like this is Pledge Week, but for $8 a month, you can become a member. This is on our Patreon page, and you can help me pay for my Adobe bill, and you can help me pay for a few things. We've got 11 patrons so far that have contributed $245. It's all transparent, so you'll see how much money that we will bring in for this thing. Again, I tell people all the time, I don't know what I'm doing, which is probably normal because I have ADHD. I can't figure out which way I want to go. And for $100 a month, you can get 4 half-page ads in the lead, and then for $250 a month, you can get 4 full-page ads, and you get sponsorship inside this show.
And I will commit to you, Louis.
All right. We love it. Thank you so much.
Now
we
you
appreciate
have 12.
Well, we'll get you figured out. I appreciate that very much. Okay, tomorrow we'll be over at Kerrville Pets Alive, doing a show there. I'm very excited about that. And then Monday, I'm efforting guest. Tuesday, though, we'll be live with Daryl Beecham at the Museum of Western Art, which is one of my favorite places in the world right now. If you guys have not been to the Museum of Western Art, that's the cool thing about Kerrville and Kerr County. We got it dialed in on a few things. Arts are one of them, and so if there's a good day, it's gonna be Tuesday. We're gonna spend a whole hour talking about art with Daryl Beecham, one of my favorite things in the world, and we'll talk about that on Tuesday. So for that, I want you guys to have a great rest of your day. Enjoy it. Kim, thank you so much for being here as
Thanks
always.
for having me.
Wow, it's great to talk to you again.
too.
So we will see you guys again tomorrow.
Holding back, no stepping stones, no broken promises, no busy tones. Just what it takes, just make believe.